I guess we're live. Yes, live, and welcome to another day in the Milky Way. Hello, everybody. And everybody's piling in slowly. They're all over at Raised by Giants. He had a wild and crazy guest on there. That's about all I want to say about that. And I got to go back and re-listen to it because I only missed about a half hour of it. But anyway, you're all joining me here tonight, and with my special guest, Linda Brooks, and my co-host, David Null, Hawkeye Two Feathers.
Good evening and blessings, all.
And welcome. Yes, Linda,
hello.
What do you got to say?
I'm just saying hello to everybody. I got my Anacarana on tonight from Nina, so I'm excited about that.
Oh yeah, hang on, hold that up there. Let's see if I can make you bigger. Go ahead, hold it up. Oh, that is really pretty.
Yeah. So,
yes. Nice.
Yeah. It's got copper in it and some orgone, so it's pretty nice.
Nice.
I've got 6 of them, but I don't know if I'm gonna try wearing them all before I give them away because they're actually 4 of them or 5. The other 5 are gifts.
There you go. Yeah, and they're good gifts too. Like I got a bunch of those Anacarana shirts. I got the Be the Frequency You Want to Receive shirt on tonight, but a lot of times I got the Anacarana shirts on, and they do make good gifts. I gotten quite a few of them.
I saw your hat the other night. It had Anacarana on it.
Yeah, where is my hat? My Anacarana hat. Well, this is a kind of a cool hat, everybody.
It is. I like it.
You know, it is a cool hat. I like it. I'm going to be wearing that a lot. So it'll make a good out in the garden hat too.
Mm-hmm.
Elderberry's in the house. Project Skyfalls and Greenie Houdini. Well, tonight we got a little bit of history, and David's going to pick out a really good story or 2 or 3 or whatever. You're going to do a long one tonight or kind of a short ones or
secret.
What? It's a secret. and Linda, you got what do you got for us tonight?
I just been doing a little history studying about the Scottish people and how they came over and interacted with the Cherokee and their language, how the Koreans and the Cherokee both ended up having to form their language for the same reason. And then this little thing comparing Native American civilization to European civilization, which is kind of what we're living in right now, how they differed. So, yeah. Great.
I like it. I like doing the history myself. David's way better at reading the stories than I am. Although I have read plenty of stories, but I'm more about the history. I love history. I've always loved history. So tonight we got a good one for you. We got Cochise, the Apache chief, the last Apache chief, Cochise, and we got a little bit on medicine men. So I'm hoping everybody will like that. That's quite good. Now, if I can figure out the share thing, we will start out. Share screen. And I think I figured it out because I am like a genius almost. Okay. And there we go. I think that's all good. And I can see it. And if I can, I don't know if I can get rid of our pictures or not. Boom, 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 boom. This is all. Oh, here, I can do that. There we go. We don't need to see my ugly mug on there. Although you two are much better looking than I. But anyhow, okay. Today we're going to talk about Cochise. In 1874, June 8th, Apache Chief Cochise dies. And I think I can enlarge this a little bit more. Yeah, like that. So you guys can see the words. Yeah, that's way too big. Okay, let's know a little bit about Cochise. Chief Cochise, one of the great leaders of the Apache Indians in their battle with the Anglo-American, dies on the Chiricahua Reservation in southeastern Arizona. Little is known of Cochise's early life. By the mid-19th century, he had become a prominent leader of the Chiricahua band of Apache Indians living in southern Arizona and northern New Mexico. Like other Chiricahua Apaches, Cochise resented the encroachment of Mexican and American settlers on their traditional lands. Cochise led numerous raids on the settlers living on both sides of the border, and Mexicans and Americans alike began to call for military protection and retribution. Okay. War between the U.S. and Cochise, however, resulted from a misunderstanding. In October 1860, a band of Apaches attacked the ranch of an Irish American named John Ward and kidnapped his adopted son, Felix Tells. Although Ward had been away at the time of the raid, he believed that Cochise had been the leader of the raiding Apache. Ward demanded that the U.S. Army rescue the kidnapped boy and bring Cochise to justice. The military obliged by dispatching a force under the command of Lieutenant George Balscombe. Unaware that they were in any danger, Cochise and many of his top men responded to Balscombe's invitation to join him for a night of entertainment by a nearby stage station. When the Apache arrived, Balscombe's soldiers arrested them. Cochise told Balscombe that he had not been responsible for the kidnapping of Felix Tells, but the lieutenant refused to believe him. He ordered Cochise to be kept as a hostage until the boy was returned. Cochise would not tolerate being imprisoned unjustly. He used his knife to cut a hole in the tent he was held in and escaped. During the next decade, Cochise and his warriors increased their raids on the American settlements and fought occasional skirmishes with soldiers. Many panicked settlers abandoned their homes. By 1872, the U.S. was anxious for peace, and the government offered Cochise and his people a huge reservation in the southeastern corner of Arizona Territory if they would cease hostilities. Cochise agreed, saying, "The white man and the Indian are to drink of the same water, eat of the same bread, and be at peace." The great chief did not have the privilege of enjoying his hard-won peace for long. In 1874, he became seriously ill, possibly with stomach cancer. He died on this day in 1874. That night, his warriors painted his body yellow, black, and vermilion, and took him deep into the Dragoon Mountains. They lowered his body and weapons into a rocky crevice, the exact location of which remains unknown. Today, however, the section of the Dragoon Mountains is known as Cochise's stronghold. The great chief did not have the privilege of enjoying his hard-won... Oh, peace. Oh, okay, wait a minute. Oh, about a decade after Cochise died, Felix Tells, the boy who was kidnapped and started the war, resurfaced as an Apache-speaking scout for the U.S. Army. He reported that a group of Western Apaches, not Cochise, had kidnapped him. And there you go. That's the story of Cochise. And let's see if I can figure the next one out. Okay. Yeah.
Of course, that's the shortened version.
Yes, that's the shortened version for tonight. But anyway, yeah, there was a movie like that. There's always them Apache movies with Cochise in it. And I thought, I heard the name the other day, and I was like, man, that one's fascinating me. And I have got to read about that. So that was my bit. But anyway, I got a little bit with the Men with Magic, about the medicine men. And we're going to just read a little bit of this. I copied a few pages down, but I thought some of this was interesting. So we're going to go with that. And share screen. And there we go. Back to the thing. And voila. Look at that. I am so good. Look at that. Look at that picture of that medicine man. He's enough to scare you. He's got fingernails that look like snakes or something too. The term medicine man was applied to Indian custom, meant a person who possessed a divine power. He treated the sick, forecast events, and conducted religious ceremonies, and took part in many gatherings of religious nature. the people had confidence in the acts of the medicine man because they knew if he performed a false rite, he or a member of his family would meet with some kind of misfortune. Therefore, he could do no wrong. The medicine man, men and women, were taught by supernatural beings who appeared to them in dreams or visions. These visits by the beings were prompted by a prolonged fast and by many sacrifices made to them. There were many ways of practicing these powers granted by the beings, so each man and woman conducted ceremonies differently and according to the way they had been instructed. They use the use of different objects and the rules governing the people who attended the gatherings had to be followed strictly. Some old medicine men and women had been given the right to teach younger persons. Often it was a child who had been cured of very serious illness by a medicine man or woman. In order to cure the child, he had imparted his power to it, and that was the reason the child must carry on when it was old enough. These children were always brought to religious events and taught to take part. The parents saw to it, and they sat beside their benefactors and instructors. They also wore sacred bags made by the healers. To call medicine men or man or woman relatives of a sick person took him a medicine pipe filled with tobacco and other gifts. If the illness was grave, they brought one or more horses to the lodge of the medicine man. The visitors placed their hands on his head and beseeched him to accept the fee and treat their sick one. If he accepted, he lit the pipe and smoked it, and the goods were left in his lodge, or the horses were tied outside. A call was always paid in advance. The people understood the rule. Goods and horses that make up the fees are sacrifices being made to the beings who give the medicine men and women their power to heal. So no one murmured, and the fees were left with the medicine man for the being who must be pleased. Medicine man made the call with the help of one or more singers, administered to the sick. He also prayed out loud and mentioned that he was honored to be the agent of the being whom he was named. After a time, he converted the fees to his own use. The being was thought, or through him, or the being was through him, with him. He said, medicine men did not name their fees, but either hinted or had someone else suggest them. Sometimes it was told a wicked one or coveted certain objects or the horses or another, and had the power to charm, cause a member of the family owning those things to become afflicted with some form of illness. After others had been called in and had failed to make the cure, he passed word around in such a way that it would reach the family that if he were called, he could cure the sick person. After he was called and attended the sick one, he caused affliction to remain if the coveted object was not presented, but when the desired fee was given, he lifted the charm and the patient recovered. So not only received what he wanted, but he was praised because of his cure. There were good medicine men too. By means of their power saw the works of the wicked ones and told of the kind of spell which was cast. For some reason, they never revealed their identity of the charmer. They always said, I could not get a glimpse of his face to know who he is. He always covers his face with his blanket and turns his back to me. If a sick person died and a charmer was suspected, sometimes relatives of the deceased plotted and killed the medicine man. Wow, you either cure him or you die. Besides the medicine man, there were also herb doctors in each tribe who treated the sick with herbs. Many old women dealt in that kind of thing. Some medicine men and women also used herbs with their magic treatments. After religious performance, they gave the patient herbs with directions for their use. Usually the directions were rigid and had to be followed to the letter if a cure was to be effective. Treatments with herbs were restricted to certain rules laid down by the doctor, which had to be followed. A fee was paid, and the same to the medicine man. Anyone could collect different kinds of herbs for their own use. If persons wanted to know the kind of plants from which certain herbs were obtained, they paid a large fee to an herb doctor who showed them the plants. The herb doctor got their knowledge of different kinds of plants for the medicine use in visions, and former a being was promised the fees received. After the herbs were dug, offerings and were deposited in the hole and carefully covered with dirt. Oh, yeah. Okay. Well, I ain't going to go any more than that. That seems pretty good. Oh, what is this doing there? Oh, yes. Okay.
And again, every region, every tribal area, every tribe had their own medicine men, women, herbal. And the thing is that the only similarity that I have found really is that they were supposed to be spiritual and physical healers, period. You know, and the roads go in different directions. Some use this, some use that. There were some herbal remedies that were common because the plant is just a good plant, like mullein or something, you know. But anyway.
So I got a question for both of you. Now, Linda, I know you collect herbs, so this is right up your alley kind of thing. So are you the herb woman or are you the medicine woman?
I consider myself a medicine woman, but you can't really use that terminology when you're running an apothecary or something like that, because you can get, like, the government's going to come in and try to say you're telling people you're healing them and you don't have a license for that and all that stuff. So I just advertise it as wellness, things that help with your wellness. So, you know, I don't say it cures anything. I just say, you know, it can help with inflammation, or it can help with pain, things like that, because there is scientific evidence that you can give on most herbs and stuff that are sold in mystic shops and things like that. But you have to be careful. So, like, the ones you choose, you have to kind of make sure there's something to back you up to show that it actually has been shown to help with those things. So, yeah.
And not only that, in my study of herbology, and you can just call yourself an herbalist.
Herbalist. Yep, that's what I was fixing to say. Herbalist. Yep.
I have several friends who are herbalists and travel around with powwows and so forth. And these folks have mixed up concoctions from around the neighborhood and make a salve that will cure almost anything. And it's edible. I mean, you know, it's just unbelievable. And but to call yourself an herbalist, and I caution folks when they say, well, you know, I'm going to learn all this stuff about this plant and that plant. Well, but the thing is that do you know what half of the stuff that they're advertising that it will cure? Do you even know what it is? Do you even know what the physical ailment is? Let alone can you find it? Do you know what a tincture is? There's a lot of stuff more than just look, there's that plant right there. Yeah, but how do you use it? And do you know what to use it for?
You know what parts to use of it and what parts not to use, and how to use those parts, because some of them have to be dried in a tea and some of them have to be turned into an extract or a tincture or a salve. Like, you can't just pick a plant up and say, well, it helps with this, but you got to know what form to put it in to help with whatever it's supposed to be used for. You can't just.
May I say something here on this? I'm going to show you some books I got this weekend. This one's the Herbal Medic, Green Beret's Guide to Emergency Medical Preparedness and Natural First Aid. I picked that up this weekend at Tractor Supply. You probably have one in your area. And I got Home Remedies Country Doctor. The same place, Tractor Supply. It was a good thing. And I'll go back to this. And I got that this weekend, and it was it's something that everybody should have. I think they should have something in their back pocket, kind of, I should say.
They should, absolutely.
You know, just in case, you know, you can't get in, or, you know, you don't want to spend $350 on a doctor's visit or something like that, and you just got a cough for, you know, I'm not saying don't go to the doctor. I'm just saying is, you know, in this day and age, they might not be as well. Look at when the you know, the cerveza bug came around. You know, a lot of people didn't want to go to the doc to get waited on for anything, more or less something, you know, and that would have been a good time to have one of these books laying around because, you know, for something little, you know what I'm talking about?
Or just have some general knowledge, like just like when you were stuck in that blizzard, you know.
Yeah.
There's just little things you can keep in your house. Like one of the biggest things people could use for a lot of stuff is garlic. I mean, garlic is like antibiotic, anti-inflammatory. It does all kinds of things. So,
And
just
clove.
have a basic knowledge. What was that?
Clove.
Cloves, yes. Garlic, cloves, vanilla extract, jalapeno peppers, onions. Like onions will draw a fever out. And I know this for a fact because my grandmother used it on us when we were kids. She would put onions in our socks and draw fevers out. Yep. American Indian Medicine. That's a good book.
Oh yeah. That's a good one. Yeah. Cool.
And it's a paperback. I've had it for years and years. But here's something. There are things that people who've put out recently. And what I would tell folks, go back to the old apothecaries, the old books from the old times, not just the hearsay, but the published apothecaries that, you know, the pharmacists used, you know, and mixing their potions and stuff, you know. So, and it was kept up. So get something like that to correlate it to what folks talk about now. Well, you know, this guy wrote a book about this and that, but that don't mean he's right or she's right or they're right. But if you go back to the old apothecaries, that a book, pharmaceuticals kind of thing, pharmacopoeia, that goes back into the 16th, 17th, and 18th centuries, way back, and they have used this. For example, mistletoe is used and can be used with small amounts to help women, I think, with menstrual issues and so forth. And there's something else I can't remember offhand, but if you have just a little bit too much, it'll kill you. You can use it as a poison. Same thing around here. We've got a lot of poke salad that's coming out right now everywhere. Now, the poke salad, you eat the tops as they first come out. You got to boil them, pour it off. It's sort of like doing collards in a way, but
yeah, you have to do it like till it's not pink anymore. Yeah.
The collards. I mean, I'm sorry. The high in vitamin C was the reason why folks coming out of a hard winter were looking for poke salad, because it would help cure them of shingle. I'm sorry, not shingles. When you don't have vitamin C,
Rickets.
Yeah, that too. Anyway, so
scurvy.
Yeah,
it starts with an S. Scurvy. Scurvy with the fringe on top. So to find out those types of things, like I haven't found it in any book, but a lot of herbalists know about it. It's like for a stomach ache, and if you ain't got nothing else, find you some blackberry leaves. Women with acute menstrual issues can just literally take a couple of the leaves. In the wintertime, when I couldn't find nothing out, I found a couple of old, old and wrinkled, blackberry leaves, and just chewed them up and helped with my stomach ache and diarrhea. And but you don't need a lot of it. But if you can't find nothing out, it'll cure it. But you can't find it in a book anywhere.
Yeah. And those things that were listed, like the oregano oil, that's a great one. That it's an antibiotic, anti-inflammatory, helps with yeast infections and things like that. Aloe vera, there's a lot of different ways you can use aloe vera, especially the meat on the inside. There's just different like compresses, poultices, things you can make with it. And I just lost. Oh, I just recently found out from the Amish that parsley helps with urinary tract problems, like if you're having a lot of infections or problems with that. And the El Salvador people that my fiance's family is from, El Salvador, he's not from there, but they are. They use the corn silks. They boil them in a tea, and that's what they use to treat urinary tract infections. So there's a whole wealth of knowledge out there if you just reach out and talk to people and find out, people are doing this. That's what medicine was actually based upon before all this stuff happened in the 1800s. I mean, Hippocrates even said, let food be thy medicine. That was the basic principle of when it first began, was they knew that it all started in your gut. So, yeah.
Well,
but,
and it sounded like these doctors way back then, even the medicine doctor, you didn't get medicine for free either. You had to pay for it.
Yes.
I mean, isn't that something? Even the Indian, hey, you better give me some horses if you want me to cure you.
Yes.
I've hung around with, I won't say this great amount of, medicine men or shamans or whatever, but I've met a few, and never did they ever mention anything about, you got to give me something, or, that it's expected. Now, there are certain traditions like a medicine pouch or tobacco or something like that you bring with you and you present as a gift for whatever they're going to do,
Yeah.
But what you read about that to me seems a little heavy-handed from a white man's point of view, because a true shaman, if he was really reaching and touching the spirits, they wouldn't allow him to be rude like that. Well, you better give me 2 ponies or I'm going to sick the spirits on you.
Well, I mean, it said
because
in there,
anybody that knows.
Well, yeah. Well, it said that some were good and some were bad. And a good shaman wouldn't cast a spell on you because you didn't give him enough ponies. And a good one, wouldn't, or a bad one wouldn't, a good one wouldn't. But in the end, if you were a shaman or, medicine man and you didn't cure the person, you're going to get killed.
Yeah.
So
they didn't tolerate hanky-panky. And there were elders who could say, listen, the last guy that you took his place that died a little while back because he, killed one of our folks, giving him frog pee or something, listen here, don't you pull that because we know it don't work, And so they could tell through the BS, if you know what I mean. You can shake, rattle, and roll all you want to, but then there were people who were going, is this guy for real? And then there were folks who knew the guy was for real.
Well, that leads into what I was just reading. I was telling you about the Native Americans and the Europeans, and one of the big practices between the tribes, like even like the Scottish Highlanders, most of the indigenous people, they had a practice of respect that, like when you showed up, trade was like ceremonial, and you brought gifts like it was supposed to be. You brought gifts to show respect that, hey, we're here. We would like to trade with you, or we need your help from, your medicine man or whatever you came there for. It was just an honor. It was like being honorable to come and bring gifts to these people, among tribes, among anyone. And it's kind of the old, like, honey works better than vinegar type thing. You come in, you gave unselfishly, right? And then now, like that was trading, but now, trade's a business transaction. So all you're worried about is like accumulating wealth to get higher status. When in old tribes, giving led you to higher status. Like you gave more gifts, and the bigger gifts you gave, they respected you more and held you to a higher, esteem.
But just because you gave somebody 2 ponies didn't necessarily mean you were like of true heart. Because there are gifts that are given to, like, well, if I give him enough, he'll pay me attention. When a child could come up was something that they whittled on a stick and handed to the person, and it would mean more than 2 horses.
Yeah.
Yes.
So there is in the
The
giving,
intention. Yeah. The intention and like
honor. It's
being
the honor. It's the
Mhm.
we don't honor things anymore.
No.
And so it was to show honor. Didn't matter how much it cost or what it was. If it was given with honor, then that's what bonded the elders and the people together, was they brought honor with them and shared it and respect.
Being
Regardless
respectful.
of how great the gift was, it was the honor that was given with the gift that was most important.
I totally agree with that. Totally agree. Because we all know we've been going through the Indian stuff for quite a while, and it's always about, like the cooping, it wasn't about killing the guy. It was about knocking him in the head, saying, see, I could have killed you. Or,
I stole your horse and you didn't know it.
Yeah, exactly. Same thing, but it was always about the honor, the bravery. I was reading today. I was doing some studying on it, and it was all about the Comanches, and literally, that's going to be next week's Comanches. But anyway, they rose to great power because all their men from little on up were all you were hunting or you were being a warrior. It was all about learning how to fight or learning how to hunt, and that was all you knew. So every guy was a fighter or a hunter. Simple as that. So,
but there's a lot of stuff in between, because they knew how to make their own arrowheads. They could make their own arrows. There was a lot of stuff along the way, because if they went off on a hunting party for a couple of days or a week or months or whatever it was, they didn't have anybody to take care of them. They had to do for themselves. If they got hurt, if they got, so they had to know medicine and certain things along the line. It wasn't just that it wasn't some dumb Indian sitting on the rock going, well, I'm waiting on more. Let's go find somebody to kill. No, he knew a lot of other stuff too.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we're going to find all about that next week.
But people's opinions are that he was the warrior and that, he was stupid about everything else. And that's just not true.
Yeah. Now, going back into that story or about the medicine men, they were talking about getting their knowledge from other beings in the mystic world. Now, we talked about that too, and you already read some stories on it, David, about the how we did the what was it, with the cactus thing, and I can't think of the name of it. What was that cactus that gives you
peyote?
Peyote, that's it. And how the being came to the old lady and told her how to use it.
And if you read you read Carlos Castaneda, talks about his meeting Don Juan and talking about the Toltecs and all of that. Peyote, they consider peyote is a deity, and he has to choose you. Like, you can't just smoke it and think you're gonna get this big experience. He has to actually choose you, as he wants to talk with you and join up with you and have fellowship and teach you something. So it's very sacred to use peyote. It's not just something that you can grab up and do and think you're gonna get all these spiritual enlightenments. So, but you're correct, they did get a lot of their knowledge from going into the tents or the huts and stuff, smoking and joining up with the deities or their spirits or the great spirit. They're all different names they call it, but and then they get their knowledge from the etheric realms.
There's been times when just problems at work, or problems here or problems there, but it basically is the same thing. That if you let the universe take care of it, and they'll send you dreams or hints or whatever. So you wake up in the morning and go, the night before you go, gee whiz, there's a person in the camp that's sick with a fever, but there's no sign of a bite or anything, or wonder what could be wrong. So you care for them, but in the dream time, the answer comes, oh my goodness, I think I should use this and some water and boil it, and we need to take her down to the creek and cool her down. And it's like you sort of knew the answer before. You've done similar procedures with someone, but in a similar instance, oh my God, this is how I treat this patient, and it comes from the universe somewhere, but it's not necessarily, for me and the people I've spoke to, it's not necessarily an entity per se, like you got to call upon different earth entities to get the cure. It actually comes through your own spirit guide.
That I agree. And that's true, regardless, because like there's other, there's white man doctors. Look at Edgar Casey. He went into the dream time to find medical cures and remedies for tons of people. Everybody talks about him having visions of the future and all these other things, his predictions and stuff. But he did a lot of medical work, and they even started a medical school or doctor's thing or something for him. And it's still going on today. Yeah,
Virginia Beach, Virginia. Yep. The ARE, Advanced Research and Enlightenment. Had been kept up with them for a long time. And there were people, sure enough, Southern Baptist, I mean, back during the war and pre-war, okay? World War II, that is. And when I moved in the early 70s up here to South Georgia, there were folks who knew who Edgar Casey was. And I'm like, what? And these were old-time religion folks. And they was like, no, Edgar, no, he cured cousin Zelda over there with his poultice, and we wrote him a letter, and no, yeah, we knew Edgar could cure us. And they didn't think of him as some kind of the scam artist. They believed Edgar to the max, because here I was, this young hippie coming up here talking to these old timers, and I'm talking about Edgar Case, and they're going, oh yeah, that remedy right there in that book right there, that cured Zelda over there on the other street over there, and blah blah blah. And I was like, they knew all about Edgar long before the internet or I was amazed at how much they knew about Edgar, if you want to know the truth.
Well, and that's absolutely it, because he was the white man's medicine man, and but the Indians knew about all that stuff long before we did.
And there are people that are using his techniques now. And in fact, there are some computers that are supposed to be able to read your aura through the screen and tell how you're doing and all that. Okay. But that's basically, he went into the dream time, into this astral self, and then could look at a person's aura and tell what was going on. And so extraordinary, right? But if you've ever read any of his poultices and things, they're all made out of like peanut oil and lanolin and this and that. It's nothing big whoop-de-doo, but you do have to follow it faithfully. No matter, so with the shaman, it's interesting how we get on this subject, right? But but the medicine men, if they really knew their business, then it didn't matter what was brought to them, as long as it was honorable. But even the really good shaman, his work is with people, and it would be a dishonor if he didn't help someone. You know what I mean? And anyone who wished anything ill upon another, they themselves would be cursed.
Yes.
So folks just didn't go around doing it.
Yeah.
They could be crazy and, you know, and really want to wish ill on you, but then their whole aura, you wouldn't want to go near them, I don't think.
Absolutely.
All right, I'll shut up.
Oh, that's all right. Well, I love to hear about this stuff. Linda, what kind of stuff do you collect? What do you collect the herbs yourself, or make poultices, or?
I do. Right now I'm doing dandelions, kudzu, chamomile. It's all growing wild out in my yard. Purple nettles, out in the woods. I'm doing poke salad. Let's see, what else have I been out there getting? Wild lettuce. And I just actually bought an Eastern North Carolina book to see what other plants I can identify, because I know a lot of the basic plants. I have stuff growing here too, like basil, oregano, rue, which is a really good plant to have. My own onions and garlic. I grow all that stuff myself. I try not to buy it at the store, especially if I'm using it for medicinal, like herbal purposes as an herbalist. But I just got a book, and there's all kinds of stuff out there that I didn't know that I could be using. My grandmother used blackberries, wild strawberries, like the leaves, the roots, bark off of trees. There's various trees, So, but I have a new book now, so I'm excited. This weekend I'm going to go out there and see if I can track down any of the other things that we have that grows out here in Eastern North Carolina. So I can add to my apothecary. But I do also, there's 3 farms nearby me that are like between an hour and a half away that all grow organic herbal plants that you can use. And I've just been in contact with them. I'm going to go visit their farms and see what kind of things they have that, that I haven't heard of before, or other things I can add. But I'm building it right now. The apothecary, I've got, my jars and my signs and little notes to go on each of my jars. And I'm making index cards with all my knowledge, so I can flip through an index file when people come in and tell me, this is what's going on, or I have this rash, or so I can just flip through real quickly and find stuff to help with various disorders. I do have friends that contact me from like out of state, in the state, and ask me about how can I help my mom with osteoporosis, like what's some things I can give her, or, like David said, female issues, or how can I help with this? My knee keeps swelling up. What can help the inflammation go down in my knee? Things like that.
Peanut oil.
Peanut oil.
It's a peanut oil and lanolin combined or different. It's Edgar Casey, old time. I've got a bad knee since high school when I got my knee broken, and I'm telling you, peanut oil.
Yeah, lanolin's a really great
tool to have too. Rub it in, just peanut oil.
And I'll tell you what I found a lot of times that you can use for a lot of things is colloidal silver. Oh. I've actually started making that myself because I remember my grandma using it when I was younger, but a while back, I had a really bad burn, and my doctor told me to go to the local apothecary and have them make me a cream with colloidal silver in it, and it's silver sulfidine cream.
Right.
And I used that on my burn, and it healed up. Well, last year, my fiance accidentally drilled a hole in my knuckle right here while we were building something, and I was holding it, and I ran in immediately and put the colloidal silver on it. The pain went away immediately. I mean, it was miraculous. The pain went away. The swelling started going down. I wrapped it up, and within 3 days of doing it 3 times a day, it was completely healed. So my son had a road rash from a motorcycle where he was dirt bike riding. I bought him some. I sent him some to spray on it and wrap it up, and it healed. So colloidal silver is excellent for lots of stuff. I mean, you can take it under your tongue every day. It can help with headaches, burns, inflammation, pain, just all kinds of things. So,
yeah, and don't worry, you're not going to turn blue Uh, yeah, I remember back in the day, people, some depends. You have to drink a lot of that stuff, and then you will.
Yeah.
But
But
you know, just not
Yeah.
happening too fast.
here's something else in history. Why were a lot of goblets and things made out of silver?
Well, because
Mhm.
they all the silver would
Well, but
protect
it
against
could be worth,
bacteria.
and it was easy to make and all that. But
Mhm.
I think somebody somewhere along the line knew the value of,
Silver.
drinking and eat. So find some true silverware
Yes.
Yeah.
and
Yes.
use it. That will help. Whether you can make colloidal silver or not, you can still get minute particles of silver into your system simply by eating with silver
Mhm.
utensils.
Um,
By the way,
making colloidal silver is really easy.
Yep.
Mhm.
If did you know that back in the day, that like before the refrigerators and all of that, they would take a silver dollar and put it in the milk to keep it from going bad so fast.
Flowing. Yeah.
So go
Yeah.
figure. They
I
all
also
knew silver did something.
I grow tobacco too now, like a little patch of tobacco. My friend got some seeds from his uncle who has a big farm, and he grew some, and it was really good. But I remember my great grandma using tobacco for remedies, like making poultices out of it, and she would like if you got a bee sting, she would mix it with her snuff, the tobacco, and it would like draw the poison and stuff out of the bee sting and make it feel better. So there's a lot of things that we have that we can use if people just we've forgotten the old ways, we've forgotten a lot of things that I knew when I was a kid. It'll get brought up and I'm like, oh yeah, I remember my great grandma doing that or my grandma doing that when I was a kid, like mercurochrome and iodine. Like it was just
Yep.
stuff they kept in their
I,
medicine cabinets.
I got them in mind now.
Yeah.
And something about tobacco back in the days, the old timers always had a pack of Red Man in their back pocket, chewing tobacco. And you want a plug, or they'd have a big plug of tobacco, right? They'd just gnaw off a piece of it and chew on it, right? But if anybody got stung, cut, or whatever, they'd always just take a big old wad of spit and just and put it on there with some of that tobacco juice. They'd leave it on there, boy, it'll be all right. And I'm still alive, but bee stings and stuff like that. If you got into ants or something like that, or
Yep.
certain folks, like if you was doing cutting okra, and some folks would just get eat up. They just take some tobacco and spit it themselves. Well, I don't want you to spit on me, Uncle Charles. So they do it themselves, but then smear it on their arm. And there's properties within the nicotine.
Oh,
Yep, there is.
Yep. So the idea of spitting tobacco, cigarettes, they're nasty and hard. But man, if you, especially as a snake bite or a possible snake bite or something, man, they'd push the juice out and then throw some tobacco in it.
Sounds awful nasty, but
I think Regine just asked about turmeric, and I was trying to remember. I put turmeric in my smoothies every day. It's really good for it's good for cognitively for your brain. They found that it helps with anti-aging of the brain, Parkinson's and Alzheimer's and things like that. And also for inflammation. Like I have a lot of autoimmune disorders, so I have inflammation, and you can also use its curcumin or turmeric, are both similar to each other. It's an antioxidant, so it can help with, they believe, with cancer, with not developing cancer. And there was something else I was trying to find. I know it helps with the heart function too.
Anti-inflammatory.
Yep. Yeah, it's anti-inflammatory, and it helps with the heart function and arthritis. I had severe arthritis. And I'll tell you, I went off all the medications. They had me on 48 medications at one point, like 2 bags.
Jeez.
I just went cold turkey and said, every time y'all keep giving me more stuff, I keep getting sicker. I just started doing natural, like I just went straight to well water, not city water. Started doing smoothies every day or juicing. I was doing like carrots and apples and celery. And then I would do fruit smoothies. I was doing a lot of raw fruits and vegetables, but the one thing that helped me the most is every day I got up and I made that Bragg's apple cider vinegar drink with the water, the honey. I put lemon juice, cayenne pepper, and turmeric in it, and drink that and drink it warm. You don't honey. People don't know about honey. You can't, if you heat honey, it makes it toxic. So what I would do is run lukewarm water in the cup and mix the honey in it and get it dissolved. And then if you want it cold after that or whatever, you dissolve your honey and mix everything in it. You can make it cold or drink it warm, however you want to do. But I would drink that, and I lost weight with it too. It helps with fat cells and stuff like that. And people can say it doesn't work. It worked for me. I did it for a year. My joints stopped swelling. Like I had brain fog. I had all that stuff. I was in bed, almost practically bedridden. Doing all those things for that year brought me back from all the junk they had me on, all the medications they had me on that had made me pretty much toxic on the inside. So, yeah, that's a great thing. A great place to start is organic apple cider vinegar with the mother. Throw you some honey and lemon in there. Drink it in the mornings, or you can do it 3 times a day, whatever you want. So.
Yeah, it's good advice. I've taken the apple cider vinegar too, many times. It's like really, really helps.
Mm-hmm.
And let me bring up something else. And I think I can throw Max's name out there. We know Max Vision, and
yes.
we both agree that there's a sufficient amount of evidence out there, and I still do my herbals, but I don't do smoothies and stuff like that. And I just don't have access. Okay. And living with what I got. But one of the things that I did do, because I researched a lot of this back in the day, I had a friend who was a chemist and a biologist and a marine anyway. So it has to do with drinking out of plastic bottles. People are drinking water out of plastic bottles. And the polymers within the plastic get into the drinks. And then the polymers work their way to your joints. Now, I had arthritis, and now I'll be 70 in September. And a couple of years ago, my arthritis was so bad, working with puppets and so forth, I couldn't open my hands. I would wake up in the middle of the night screaming in pain and taking medicines and all that. I stopped drinking out of plastic bottles from the store. Stopped drinking water out of plastic bottles. And Max agrees, his arthritis went away too, simply by stopping it. Now you can use plastic utensils.
That's why I use these. I don't.
It has to do with how the process is. It's very simple.
Glass bottle too.
Yeah. Now, if you use the same bottle over and over or something, it's not near as bad. It gets less. But new water in brand new bottles, the plastic is off-gassing. If you have that new car smell, the plastic is off-gassing odors from how it's made. That is the new car smell. It's actually toxic. Okay. And so, but the plastic off gases into the liquid and then you ingest it. So once you rinse it out and use it a couple of times, the off gas ain't there. So, but people drinking distilled water out of plastic bottles, dear friends who are passed now, they had good well water, but, they drank cases of water a week out of plastic containers, and they had arthritis where they couldn't move their hands. And I'm just saying, try it.
Another thing I saw Loki mentioned in the comment in the chat. One reason that I know the silver works is I remember my grandparents using it on the farm animals. And when my son got injured, the first thing I did, I said, I don't know if I can get to you tomorrow. I'm going to try, but I have something to help you. But if I can't, I looked it up and I said, you can go to any pet store right now, Tractor Supply, you can go to Pet Smart, whatever. They sell the silver spray for your pets, for your cows and your horses and your dogs to cure. I mean, that's what it's for. And if it works for a pet, it works for humans, right? Like most of the drugs they give pets, tramadol, the like Xanax, all that stuff is the same stuff that they give to humans to help with things. So I told him, I said, just run out there. They make a spray, just get it. And, it's a silver spray. I can't remember the name of it. It's marketed. It's about $24 for like a Windex size bottle to use to just spray on yourself when you get injured or have cuts or anything like that. So.
And I'm not recommending this to folks, but many years ago, I had a nurse, a friend of mine, and we were all sick and we could not go to the doctor. And she said she went down to the local animal supply and got a bottle of penicillin.
Fish ox, you can use fish ox,
and lined us up, and I was like that. She goes, she goes, they got cows that are worth $50,000 around here, and more. But I mean, their cow gets sick. You think that vaccination better be good, but not for human consumption. And I'm not suggesting people should do it, but I ain't dead yet.
Yeah, but you would have to make sure you know the dosages and stuff to use.
Right,
That's
but my point is, she was a medical professional and did that. But my point is that if it's good enough for animals, it damn sure better be good enough for humans.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree. David, what do you got for story so I can get the page ready?
Oh. Hang on.
But Linda, I bet you didn't expect that tonight.
No, I didn't. I was actually going to tell you about how the difference in Native Americans and Europeans and when they came over, the difference in their ideology of things when they came over and took over the country over here from the Native Americans and how it changed everything because, the land, they let you use the land, right? They had hunting ranges and temporary use of plots, and everything was kind of communal. And then when the Europeans came over, everything was individually owned. They passed it down to families so nobody else could use it. Get off my land. And they put the fences up, right? So the animals can't get around. And then we already talked about the trade thing, but they had gender roles, like you said. Men hunted, fished, and made war, and women farmed and had greater freedom and influence. Actually, matriarchal societies, right, where the women made a lot of the decisions. But now the men lead the household. They farm, they make war, and then the women had few rights when the Europeans came over, and they did all the household labor. So, everything turned in from being communal, peaceful, trying to work together as a unit and a tribe to individualize. Let's separate the people from one another. Everybody's got to make their money. Everybody's got to get higher status, richer, take away from the poor, all that kind of stuff, right? So I just found that interesting. Somebody had done a chart on that, and I was like, I've thought about it, but I hadn't
327.
I'm reading your hands there. I'm reading your hands.
327. I'm sorry, I didn't want to interrupt you, but while you were talking, he could find the page.
Okay, 327. 27 is my number.
Yeah,
and there's looking. 3 of them.
No, I agree with you. They came here, and that was the biggest feud of all. Like we did Crazy Horse last week, and he says, "The white man has no father, no mother, no grandfather to teach him anything."
Mm-hmm.
He was really disappointed. 372, you said?
327.
Oh, 327. Anyway, yeah, because they were, they were all about the land and honor and
it took a village to raise a child.
Yeah, exactly.
And now you can't speak to someone else's child about something they did wrong without, they're threatening to come over there and bop you in the head or take you to court, or,
Yeah,
and if one of the women in the tribe saw one of them boys acting up, she'd backhand him up backside the head just as quick as a mama would do, because it was about, hey, You know, just because your mama don't see you doing it, I do, and you're a you know, and I'm a member of the tribe, and you're gonna act right, boy. You know. And
yeah, my kids tried that one time with an adult that told them to stop swinging on a door, and they looked at him and said, "You ain't my daddy." I said, "Well, I'm your mama, and you're about to get a spanking if you don't apologize right now to that man because he's trying to keep you out of trouble. He's an adult. I don't care." But they thought I was gonna do like jump in there and be like, "Yeah, don't you speak to my child like that?" But I shocked them, and they learned real quick.
yeah,
Oh, yeah.
there are times when, you know, the neighbors should say something, you know.
Yeah.
One of the things that I've noticed with Native folks that, you know, being going to a powwow and being a member of the powwow and hanging out with being there in nighttime and mornings when folks get up in their jammers and stuff. But anyway, you know, if there are little children involved, everybody knows what that child's doing. But at the same time, like they'd come down, Mr. Dave, and hang out with puppets and do storytelling and whatever. They also knew what Mr. Dave was doing.
Mm-hmm.
So wherever they were, the little children was going. So how is the lady over there that does? Oh, Mama, she does blah blah blah, and just yakety yakety yakety. So Mama didn't have to walk around. They got all this. They got all the stuff from the kids. Oh, Mama, you should see that thing. It's so ugly. You know. Anyway.
Mm-hmm. All right. I got it up. Are you ready?
So I'm sorry, I'm giggling, but it's sort of like little coyotes. You know, these children, because there used to be a whole band of them at the powwows where I was at, because they'd all come down and they loved to hang out with Mr. Dave and see the puppets. I was always telling stories and stuff, you know. And so, and it's a blessing to me too to be able to have done it. But you know, parents want to know, where's my child? Oh, he's down at Hawkeye's place. You know, where's my child? He's down at the puppets. Where's my child? They're still down there. And then the parents would come down and go, here's $20. I couldn't have paid a babysitter for what you done for me. My kids ain't bugged me all day. Here's $20, and they'd put it in my tip jar. But anyway, them were the good old days.
Yes, they were. Now, man, parents tend to watch their children. Oh, don't even leave the house without me watching you. You know, don't go to the playground by yourself. I remember my parents, just get out of here and go do stuff all day long. You know, they didn't care what I did. I was gone from morning till night.
Till the lights are coming on the street.
Yeah.
We don't want to see you.
Yeah.
Until dinner time.
But also within tribes, and I consider the Black folk that I've been around in the families, they're very tribal in their own way. And I think it's a good thing, because there'll be three granny ladies, you know, sitting over by themselves, having a little snip and smoking a cigarette. And one of them grandchildren to get out of hand, I see you, you better not. And that child will stop dead, you know. But the same thing happens within tribal stuff. They'll go, and they don't say a lot of stuff, but it's that look that comes across, and you know what I'm talking about, Linda. Yeah. There's that look that comes. Is like, I better quit whatever it is I'm doing, because I done got that look.
Absolutely.
But so
all
anyway,
right, there we go. Here it is.
But they looked after each other, is what I mean.
Yeah.
It was almost like they were expected to look after someone else's child who was going to get into mischief, you know?
Mm-hmm. Oh, I agree.
Not that they were trying to.
The sea. Is that what we're reading, David? The Serpent of the Sea? That's a pretty interesting story title.
Yes, from the Zuni. And I think I was going to try to read it last time. I read through it and I was like, no, I haven't read this aloud to y'all. So in that weird, if I did, long time ago, because we're at 30 shows now.
30. Yes. Yeah. Yes, we are.
So thank you, everyone. I appreciate it, coming and telling stories and reading them. And I thank you all for coming and hanging out with who's that guy with the hat on? Robert, that we love so much. And also with Linda too. So here's the story. You ready?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Anytime you are.
All right. I'm giving you that little bit of space. Serpent of the sea, the Zuni tribe. Let us abide with the ancients tonight, exclaims the elder. Be it well, reply the listeners. In the times of our forefathers, there was a village under Thunder Mountain called Home of the Eagles. It is now in ruins, the roof's gone, the ladders decayed, the hearth's cold. But when it was alive, it was the home of a beautiful maiden, the daughter of the priest chief. Though beautiful, she had one strange trait. She could not endure the slightest speck of dust or dirt upon her clothes or her person. Sacred spring of water lay at the foot of the terrace on which the town stood. Now we call it the Pool of the Apaches. But then it was sacred to Kalawasi, the serpent of the sea. Washing her clothes and bathing herself over and over, the maiden spent almost all of her time at this spring. The defilement of his waters, their contamination by the dirt of her apparel and the dung of her person angered Kolawasi. He devised a plan to punish her. When the maiden next came to the spring, she was startled to find a smiling baby boy gurgling and splashing in the water. Of course, it was the sea serpent who, like the other gods, can assume any form at his pleasure. The girl looked all around, north, south, east, and west, but saw no trace of a person who might have left the beautiful child. Whose can it be? She wondered. Only a cruel mother would leave her baby here to die. The maiden talked softly to the child, took him in her arms, and carried him up the hill to her house. There she brought him to her room, where she lived apart from her family because of her loathing of dust and dirt. As she played with him, laughing at his pranks and smiling into his face, he answered her in baby fashion with coos and smiles of his own. Meanwhile, her younger sisters had prepared the evening meal and were waiting for her. Where can she be? They asked. Probably at the spring as usual, said their father. Run down and call her. But the younger sister could not find her at the spring. So she came home and climbed to the maiden's private room at the top of the house. And there the maiden was, sitting on the floor and playing with the beautiful baby. On hearing this, the father was silent and thoughtful, for he knew that the waters of the spring were sacred. When the rest of the family started to climb the ladder to see the child, he called them back. Do you suppose any real mother would leave her baby in a spring? He said, this is not as simple as it seems. And since the maiden would not leave the child, they ate without her. Upstairs, the baby began to yawn. Growing drowsy herself, the girl put him on the bed and fell asleep beside him. The maiden's sleep was real, the baby's a pretense. He lay quietly and began to lengthen, drawing himself out, extending longer and longer. And slowly the serpent of the sea appeared, like a nightmare come true. He was so huge that he had to coil himself round and round the room, filling it with scaly, gleaming circles. Placing his enormous head near the maiden's, Kolawasi surrounded her with his coils and finally took his own tail into his mouth. So the night passed. In the morning, when breakfast was ready and the oldest sister had not come down, the others grew impatient. Now that she has the child, nothing else matters to her, the old man said. A baby is enough to absorb any woman's attention. But the smallest sister climbed up to the room and called her. Receiving no answer, she pushed the door, first gently and then with all her might. She could not move it and began to be frightened. Running to the sky hole over the room where the others were sitting, she cried for help. Everyone except the father rushed up and, pushing together, cracked the door just enough to catch a glimpse of the serpent's great scales. Then they screamed and ran back down. The father, priest and sage that he was, told them quietly, "I expected as much. I thought it was impossible for a woman to be so foolish as to leave her child in the spring. But it's not impossible, it seems, for another woman to be so foolish as to take such a child to her bosom." Climbing up to her room, he pushed against the door and called, "O Kolowasi, it is I who speak to you, I, your priest. I pray you, let my child come to me again, and I will make atonement for her errors. She is yours, but let her return to us once more." Hearing this, the serpent of the sea began to loosen his coils. The whole building, the whole village shook violently, and everyone trembled with fear. At last the maiden awoke and cried piteously for help. As the coils unwound, she was able to rise. The great serpent bent the folds of his body against the doorway so that they formed an arch for her to pass under. She was half stunned by the din of the monster's scale, which rasped against one another like the scraping of flints under the feet of a rapid runner. Once clear of the writhing mass, the maiden was away like a deer. Tumbling down the ladder and into the room below, she threw herself on her mother's breast. But the priest remained praying to the serpent. He ended with, "It shall be as I have said, she is yours." He and the two warrior priests of the town called together all the other priests in a sacred council. Performing the solemn rites, they prepared plumes, prayer wands, and offerings of treasure. After 4 days of ceremonies, the old priest called his daughter and told her that she must give these offerings, together with the most precious of them all, herself, to the serpent of the sea. She must renounce her people and her home and dwell in the house of Kolowasi in the waters of the world. "Your deeds tell me," said her father, "that this has been your desire, for you brought this fate on yourself by using the sacred water for profane purposes." The maiden wept and clung to her mother's neck. Then, shivering with terror, she left her childhood home. In the plaza, they dressed her in sacred cotton robes, elaborately embroidered, and adorned her with earrings, bracelets, beads, and other precious things. Amidst the lamentations of the people, they painted her cheeks with red spots, as if for a dance. They made a road of sacred meal toward the distant spring known as the doorway of the serpent of the sea. 4 steps toward this spring they marked out sacred terraces on the ground at the west of the plaza. And when they had finished the sacred road, the old priest, without one tear, told his daughter to walk out on it and call the serpent to come. At once the door opened, and the serpent of the sea descended from the maiden's room, where he had been waiting. Without using ladders, he lowered his head and breast down to the ground in great undulations. He placed his heavy head on the maiden's shoulder, and the priest said, "It is time." Slowly, cowering beneath her burden, the maiden started towards the west. Whenever she staggered with fear and weariness and was about to wander from the path, the serpent gently pushed her onward and straightened her course. They went toward the river trail and followed it, then crossed over the mountains of the red paint, and still the serpent was not completely uncoiled from the maiden's room. Not until they were past the mountain did his tail emerge. Suddenly, Kolowski drew himself together and began to assume a new shape. Before long, his serpent form contracted and shortened until he lifted his head from the maiden's shoulder and stood up. a beautiful young man in sacred ceremonial dress. He slipped his serpent scales, now grown small, under his flowing mantle. In the snake's hoarse hiss, he said, "Are you tired, girl?" She never replied, but plodded on with her eyes cast down. In a gentler voice, he said, "Are you weary, poor maiden?" Rising taller, walking a little behind her, he wrapped his scales more closely in his blanket. He repeated in still a softer voice, "Are you weary, poor maiden?" At first she dared not look around, though the voice sounded so changed, so kind. Yet she still felt the weight of the serpent's head on her shoulder, for she had become so used to the heavy burden and could not tell that it had gone. At last, however, she turned and saw a splendid, brave young man, magnificently dressed. "May I walk by your side?" he asked. "Why don't you speak?" "I am filled with fear and shame," she said. "Why?" he asked. "Why do you fear?" "I came away from my home with a terrifying creature, and he rested his head upon my shoulder, and even now I feel it there." She lifted her hand to the place where it had been, still fearing that she would find it. "But I came all the way with you," he said, "and I saw no such creature." She stopped and looked at him. "You came all the way? Then where has the serpent gone?" He smiled and replied, "I know where he is gone." "Ah, my friend, will he leave me alone now? Will he let me return to my people?" "No, because he thinks too much of you," he said. "Where is he?" she asked. "He is here," said the youth, smiling and placing his hand on his heart. "I am he. And I love you, beautiful maiden. Won't you come and stay with me? We will live and love one another, not just now, but forever, in all the waters of the world." And as they journeyed on, the maiden quite forgot her sadness, and soon she forgot her home too. She followed her husband into the doorway of the Serpent of the Sea and lived with him ever after. Based on Frank Hamilton Cushing's version of 1931. How about that?
That is good. Okay.
It wasn't too long, but
No, it's good, good, good. Absolutely. Of course, I'm froze up again. Oh, yeah, just the way it is.
There are some stories from the tribes that, there's a curse and there's a this and there's a that. Well, her curse was she didn't know that he was this, handsome young man, but her curse was that she had to go with him. She had to pay for her sins, and she had to, and learn some honor and respect. We were just talking about that. He didn't mention honor, but basically, she defiled the spring by going there all the time. And so she had to honor. That's really is interesting. We were talking about that earlier. But so with this honor, she defiled it. So her answer to fix it was she had to go with the serpent. And then, oh my goodness, he's a handsome young man. He's all dressed so nice. And, we get to go flat through the water, And so there is this righteous wrong that is forgiven by the person or entity or deity or whatever that belongs to the spring. But so she's learned a lesson by carrying this weight and then changes her mind as well. So that's an interesting intertwining of forgiveness and acceptance.
And sometimes there's that big surprise. Remember that one story where there was one blind kid and he had to do the old lady, and the old lady turned into a beautiful woman, and he, and she said, "Come back," and then he never got to go back, which was kind of sad. That was kind of a sad one. But this is kind of the same thing, I guess I'll go with the ugly serpent, and I turns out to be a handsome brave.
But she had to pay. But the thing was, is that she had to pay. The elders told her, she had ticked off the elders and her daddy, to boot, right?
Yep.
So you got to pay for this, girl, and sorry, but you got to pay for this. So, and she did and carried it as long as she did, and how long the snake was, to give an idea of the time involved, and she carried that burden and then was fearful of it. And then, but so that's a very interesting story. A lot of twisties in there as far as parables or whatever, but it ended up, they fixed it,
Absolutely. And you know what happens after the story? There's a card.
Yeah.
While you're pulling a card, Linda.
Card.
Linda,
I already pulled him.
Oh, you already did? Okay.
I pulled him early.
Nice.
All right.
Go ahead, what you was going to say. I still got to find him.
Oh, well, he's got to find the cards. Anyway, yeah. Well, anyway, what'd you think of that, Linda? You got, next time you're going to have to, maybe have some papers or something. I know you were going to talk about that stuff. I wanted to talk about, I was looking at another story about the Iroquois too, and they were made up of all those East Coast kind of tribes, weren't they?
Yes. I actually have some, the books, the couple of books here on the Eastern, the North Carolina tribes, the tribes of North Carolina. So there were several, like I personally know some Blackfeet, some Lumbees. I have a lot of friends that are Lumbee, because the Lumbee are closer to me. They're like right here within an hour of me, or 45 minutes. And when I went to school, when I was in UNC Charlotte, a lot of Lumbee went to UNC Charlotte. So I ended up making a lot of friends there that were Lumbee. And actually, I was going to tell everybody, this Saturday is National American Indian Day, or Native American Day. So it's actually a national holiday. Yeah. And yeah, this Saturday. And then there's a lot of powwows and stuff going on this weekend. So you might want to look on the powwow calendar, see if or look up events in your area. There might be something you can go to Saturday just to delve into the heritage a little more. Yeah. And
that's a real good idea.
Yeah. Yeah. And the Cherokee are having their big thing that they do every year for customers, and to do a celebration for their heritage is coming up on the 28th of this month for the Eastern Band of Cherokee. And they're going to do the Unto These Hills production that night from 8 to 10. So we're planning on going to that as well.
So if you're in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
Nice.
It's not too far from you. It's up in the North Carolina mountains. So Tennessee, up in that area.
I'm going to have to check out around here, because we got a lot of them around here.
I think I just saw something in South Dakota on the powwow calendar. So
yeah.
Well,
out to the northwest of us, Montana, just the Montana area and stuff. They got a lot, like by Cumberson, and there's a bunch up there. I know Nina had mentioned that. When she had mentioned that there was a bunch up that way a few times. That's where they got the painted rocks up there too, and they do the powwows up that way too.
Yeah, cool.
I'm gonna have to look that up and check it out.
But
all right, David.
Also with Pine Ridge being up there in South Dakota, which is on your way to Wyoming or Montana, either one, that I'm sure they would be having something, if that. I decided, because we had talked about this before and it was a surprise, pick a couple of cards before we start and see if they make any sense. Okay. So out of this, Deception, Owl, and both of these cards are straight up, and the other one is Deer, which is Gentleness. But anyway, so Owl Magic, Omens, and Time and Space. Does the truth emerge? Casting out deception. Silent fight. Sacred medicine bird. So owl medicine is symbolically associated with clairvoyance, astral projection, and magic, both black and white. Owl is called the night eagle on several medicine wheels used by Amerindian teachers. Traditionally, owl sits in the east, the place of illumination. Since time immemorial, humanity has been afraid of the night, the dark, and the unseen, waiting fearfully for the first crack of morning light. Conversely, night is owl's friend. Owl hunts its prey at night, and no one it not only can it see in the dark, but it can hear and pinpoint its food accurately. Owls are the night hunters. Some native peoples are fearful of owl and call its feathers deceiver feathers. An owl feather is silent. You cannot hear owl when it flies, but its prey definitely knows when when it strikes, for its beak and talons are razor sharp. Owl is oftentimes the medicine of sorcerers and witches. If owl is your medicine, you will be drawn to magical practices and perhaps explore the dark arts. Please stay away from any kind of dark magic or any art that takes energy away from another person or a being. If you have owl medicine, these night birds will have a tendency to collect around you, even in the daytime. You'll hear them. I hear them hooting up and down the river at certain times of the day because they recognize the kinship with you. Is it any wonder that many cultures owl is a symbol for wisdom? This is because owl can see that which others cannot. Owl sees and knows what is there, where others are deceived. Athena, a Greek goddess of wisdom, had a companion owl on her shoulder which revealed unseen truths for her. Owl had the ability to light up Athena's blind side, enabling her to speak the whole truth as opposed to only a half truth. Now that I'm in my expression in this, there's a lot of folks right now trying to give you only half truths. So the owl medicine is to see the deception. It's not necessarily that you are being deceived, although you may be. So owl medicine says, hey, pay attention. You may be deceived. You may be in the process of being deceived. If owl is in your personal medicine, no one can deceive you about what they are doing, no matter how they are trying to disguise it or hide it from you. But there's other areas where we get stuff from. And we think, well, true or not, whatever. We always have to be aware of deception. So use owl if you're curious about, is this true or not? Ask with an owl's heart to see whether or not something is true or not. If you are unaware of your medicine power, you may take your keen insights and abilities for granted. Others never do. Now, this is if you have owl medicine as a totem. Owl medicine people know more about an individual's inner life than that person knows about him or herself. If you pulled the owl card, you're being asked to use your powers of keen, silent observation to intuit or understand some life situation. Owl is befriending you and aiding you in seeing the total truth. Owl can bring you messages in the night through dreams or meditation. Pay attention to the signals and omens. The truth always brings further enlightenment. And that was sort of, talking about Edgar Cayce and being in the dream world and shamans going into the dream realm and peyote and that kind of thing. Since I mentioned peyote and dreamtime, having done probably way too many mushrooms in my lifetime, when I got older and started moving towards just getting high, and I didn't go party. When I got high, I went to the woods anyway. So secretly, I was already looking for those, interdimensional beings. And then later on, I could literally hear the mushrooms call me. Like, I'm over here in the deep grass, come find me. And I'd go over there in the deep grass and there'd be this little mushroom, little psychedelic mushroom. And it'd be so small. And there've been a couple of times where we just eating small ones like that when we go out to look for them. And 15 minutes later, you forgot where you're at. I mean, you really don't know where you are. You've been in this field before, but it's like, oh man, you can hear all kinds of little voices and stuff, and other mushrooms calling you, and go dancing around like a butterfly. I know it sounds silly, but I'm serious as hell. And find a whole bunch of other mushrooms because you weren't paying attention, and they all talk little squeaky voices, kind of thing. It's weird as hell, but man, I'm here to tell you, we would find them when other people couldn't. Oh, there ain't no mushrooms there. We'd come home with a big old handful, you know, and of course, literally flying home. But when I quit doing that so much and used them seriously to go down in the woods and have a conversation with spirit. So me, myself, and I had all these other trippy experiences, and I've also had peyote as well years ago. But the mushroom thing, if you treat it with respect and honor, man, they can show you all kinds of stuff. It ain't about getting high, but it is about connecting with that other spirit realm. And there's a lot of folks out there that want to do mushrooms and this and that. Well, not bragging, but I've had over 500 mushrooms easily in my lifetime. And, you know, when I started learning to use them correctly, I didn't want to do them anymore because I'd already seen the connection. And they were like, all this stuff's around you all the time. Now, why do you want to get something to get high to see? Well, I guess I'd already seen it. So they were like, you don't have to take this anymore. You just need, for me, they just said, you just need to remember where I've already been. Now, the next one is deer.
Deer.
I love this card. I love what it talks about. I think the message just, you know, and maybe I picked it just for me. Who knows? But in this grand time of scarcity, and, you know, I did a video called, you know, Fear and Loathing on Planet Earth. And everything's about fear and dying and death and destruction. And we're all going to flip and die again. And deer's about gentleness. Deer.
Of course, I love the deer. It's actually, I didn't know this, but it's also my Native American astrological sign.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, so then this card's for you.
Absolutely.
So deer number 4 in the book, and it's gentleness. Dear, so gentle and loving you are, the flower of kindness, an embrace from afar. One day, Fawn heard Great Spirit calling to her from the top of Sacred Mountain. Fawn immediately started up the trail. She didn't know that a horrible demon guarded the way to the Great Spirit's lodge. The demon was trying to keep all the beings from creation from connecting with Great Spirit. He wanted all of Great Spirit's creatures to feel the Great Spirit didn't want to be disturbed. This would make the demon feel powerful and capable of causing them to fear him. Fawn was not at all frightened when she came upon the demon. This was curious, as the demon was the archetype of all the ugly monsters and demons that have ever been. The demon breathed fire and smoke and made disgusting sounds to frighten Fawn. Any normal creature would have fled or died on the spot from fright. Fawn, however, said gently to the demon, "Please let me pass. I'm on the way to see the Great Spirit." Fawn's eyes were filled with love and compassion for this oversized bully of a demon. The demon was so astounded by Fawn's lack of fear. No matter how he tried, he could not frighten Fawn because her love had penetrated his hardened, ugly heart. Much to the demon's dismay, his rock-hard heart began to melt and his body shrank to the size of a walnut. Fawn's persistent love and gentleness had caused the meltdown of the demon. Due to this gentleness and caring that Fawn embodied, The pathway is now clear for all of Great Spirit's children to reach Sacred Mountain without having to feel the demons of fear blocking their way. I got to read that sentence again because it is so, so true. Due to the gentleness and caring that Fawn embodied, this is the important, the pathway is now clear for all of Great Spirit's children to reach Sacred Mountain without having to feel the demons of fear blocking their way. So you have to believe. You know, if you don't believe your prayers ain't reaching there, then they may not be. Dear teaches us to use the power of gentleness to touch the hearts and minds of wounded beings who are trying to keep us from Sacred Mountain. Like the dappling of Fawn's coat, both the light and dark may be loved to create gentleness and safety for those who are seeking peace. Now, we're all seeking peace at some point in this. So angry and shouting at the other person never works. But if you have discussion and use gentleness, a lot can be accomplished. If Dear has gently nudged its way into your cars today, you are being asked to find the gentleness of spirit that heals all wounds. Now, interesting that we were talking about herbs and things and stuff to heal, you know, outside stuff. But, you know, here's to jump into the cards, Dear saying, yeah, but I'm here also to heal your heart too. So you're being asked to find the gentleness of spirit that heals all wounds. Stop pushing so hard to get others to change and love them as they are. Apply gentleness to your present situations and become like the summer breeze, warm and caring. This is your tool for solving the present dilemma if you are facing one. If you use it, you will connect with Sacred Mountain, your centering place of serenity, and Great Spirit will guide you. I couldn't have asked for a better card. I mean, I just couldn't ask for a better card because, you know, there are so many people who are afraid to believe in the simple things. Oh, well, it's got to be more complicated than this. Maybe not. Maybe you just need to believe, you know? Well, I don't know, this and that, blah, blah, blah. Oh, and by the way, a friend of mine stopped by to introduce me to his friend who had lived in Arkansas around Hot Springs, grew up there and does glass blowing and other things and works with rocks and stuff. And he goes, you remember years ago when Greyhawk from the great grandson of Crazy Horse went around? I went, wait, hang on. What? I think he said it was Greyhawk. I'm sorry, Gray Fox. And we were talking about Crazy Horse last weekend, and we're sitting here in the house, and he's like, yeah, I met this guy. You know, he's a great grandson of a Crazy Horse. And I was like, oh, my God. Walked in my house sitting here having conversation, you know, and I'm like, now, how crazy is that?
That is wild, isn't it? We were just talking about that.
Yeah.
I know. And last week, you know, and then we're sitting here, and I said, Crazy Horse, what? You can't be serious. You know, it was automatically, it was like, wow. I guess you were meant to come by the house and tell me who this guy was because I couldn't remember his name.
Exactly.
Awesome. That's pretty awesome.
That was one thing I wanted to ask before I forget. It's on my mind. Okay, now Linda, you're doing the herbal medicines and stuff, and David was talking about doing the journey with the mushrooms or whatever, you know, do you do any kind of spirit guiding interaction like that to get remedies or to do, you know what I'm talking about? Do you do any kind of thing like that?
I do. I've just well, I'd have to say in the last year and a half, I've been studying bards, ovates, and druidry But I've also, my guides had led me to start doing some shamanic practicing and learning. So I have started doing shamanic journeying where I do go in and meditate, and yes, and I try to get connected, because I do Reiki too, energy healing. It kind of helps me not just with getting the herbal remedies and things, but because what happens with me is somebody will ask me a question and I'll get in tune with them, and it just pops in my head. Like I get told, like, this is what you need to, but it helps me connect with them on a spiritual level to where I can do like more energy healing, So, and I always try to see who my spirit guides, like my power animals are for the week, who's walking with me, who's going to help me this week. What do I need to focus on? Things like that. But yeah, I had to learn how to set up my anchor point and all that stuff. And then I started doing my journeying. So yeah, I do that.
Huh. Interesting. Yeah. I was wondering about that because we're talking so much about it. I'm like, well, that's on my head. So maybe somebody else was thinking the same thing.
Yep.
And Robert, it's when I was younger, I had all these gifts and abilities, and I had a lot of things happen where I stopped using them. But it's quite like, it's wild actually, because you're programmed and indoctrinated that all this is juju, like crazy stuff, and then you start using it, and in the beginning you're kind of like, yeah, we'll just see what happens, and then Spirit's like, oh, you're here, oh yeah, it's time, baby, like, and then you start having all these things coming to you, and now I just trust myself. It took me a while to start really trusting my intuition and knowing that what I'm being shown and told and things, that I can trust that is true. And then I actually, every time I trust it, now it's like almost automatically I get confirmation. It's like, they're like a high five, like a handshake, like that's a girl, like, you're paying attention now and we're proud of you. Just keep on your path and do what you're supposed to be doing. So,
and see, there are folks who, go down the path of shamans or whatever. I went down the path to just learn about healing spiritually, etc. Just healing. And no, I didn't want to learn any particular special power or connect with any entity or anything like that. But although during this process, I have connected with entities, but so mine, I guess, was kind of childlike versus other people who have these like, well, I'm going to study to be a shaman for this and this and this and this. I just want to learn how to heal. That's all.
Yeah, that was my purpose too, David. Yeah, exact same thing. I just I knew I've always helped people. I've always been in like public service positions and things like that. I had studied, about the body. I planned on being a nurse. Then I went into psychology. Then I ended up being a counselor with the health department, and still doing like a lot of health things. Like I was an EMT, a volunteer EMT for a while, but that's what I wanted. When I started being shown things, that's all I wanted. I just wanted to know how do I use these? Or you're telling me about these herbs. How do I use them? How can I help people? So when I started the shamanic stuff, like I'm not like a shaman or anything by no means. I'm just studying and doing shamanic practices. Like I'm teaching myself how to use the old Native American ways of my ancestors and things like that. But it's all for healing. It's all to try to help other people. And right. So it is quite a remarkable journey when you just let your heart really guide you into what you know that you're supposed to be doing.
I want to add this. There are folks who are thinking that they're going to, if they take ayahuasca or mushrooms or something, that it's going to be the shortcut. And all it does is show you a bunch of mumbo jumbo because you haven't done the groundwork. And it taught me a long time ago, you haven't done your groundwork, Hawkeye. You got to learn about this and patience and other stuff, and then come back and go back to that same place. And you go, holy crap, all the stuff I missed. But you don't have to. I haven't had any kind of psychedelics in, I guess, close to 30 years. And I don't need them. Now, maybe it's because I did so many. I just, have crossed that threshold kind of thing. And that's possible. But in just working with other people, and just showing them how to calm themselves and how just to meditate. If you want to sit cross-legged and go Om, you can, whatever is comfortable with you. But to find your own center and to find your own peace, you just need to just be quiet and just listen. So it doesn't take any remarkable powers to get there. The remarkable power is you got to shut up and listen,
Mm-hmm.
And connect with your higher self and allow them to show you. The next day, you like this guy coming in out of the blue that had met the same guy I did years ago. I was like, now that's just bizarre.
What's the chances?
Really? I mean, they walk into my house, and bring it up, but I consider myself a shaman in training, because until I can learn how to go through this wall over here, I ain't learned nothing, but I don't care. It's okay, because everything is the journey. So for those folks who are looking for inspiration, don't force it. You have to allow it to happen.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the biggest things. People want to take mushrooms or whatever because they want to force that power. And the power that you learn is in being patient. The power that you learn is then, oh my God, when I just quit thinking stuff and just be quiet for a little bit, I get all kinds of messages and guidance and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow.
That's what Lucky Stone always says, because he talks to his guides like, he's really in touch. And he says they all want to talk to you, but nobody wants to stop and listen. Mm-hmm. He says if you stop and listen, they'll start talking. They may not stop, but they'll be talking. He says you just got to listen. And here he is. He says that's the lesson. The journey is the important part of the decision. But anyway, but he says always listen. They're always willing to talk. He says you just got to listen. Anyway, we're getting pretty long. We got to get going. And David, you got a show after this, or how's it going? Yeah,
about 12:15. Give me a chance to go get coffee and a little bit of business.
Yeah, okay, and that sounds good. And Linda, when's you gonna start your show?
I'm shooting for this Monday at 7 p.m. Oh no, 9 p.m. 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 6 p.m. Central Pacific Time. I mean, so yeah, I'm trying to. I've been doing notes all weekend, and so I'm hoping to shoot it over the weekend, like Friday and Saturday, and then it's going to be my first time, so I don't know how long it's going to take me to do this.
Are you going to have a recorded show? Or
I'm going to do a pre-recorded. I'm going to do a pre-recorded the first time and try to work with. I'm going to have you send me that app you use actually to try to do the intros and outros for it or whatever. Yes. And the first one's going to be pre-recorded with live chat in it, and then after I get better at it, and I want to have a guest on when I do my first live. I'm trying to have like my guests come in and us talk about things. So absolutely.
Yeah. Now, don't forget, let me know, and I'll mention it on Saturday's show.
Yes, I will. I absolutely
will. We're gonna, what you're gonna talk about or something, and I'll promote it as best I can.
Okay. Yep. I will let you know on Saturday.
All right. And I hope everybody enjoyed this show, and thank you both for coming on. It's been really informative. So what I want to tell everybody is, go out there and investigate, do your own research. Learn about the medicines of the plants and things around you. You don't have to get wacky and go on some spiritual journey to find out what you need to know. You just need to open your ears, be quiet, and listen, as the deer and the owl said.
It will end up being a spiritual journey. If you go out and meet people who at a festival or something who's into, or herbalism or herbology, however you want to, being an herbalist, and just knowing when you show genuine. I talked to this gentleman today, and he goes, my time is valuable to me, and if somebody really wants to learn, I'll know in the first 10 minutes, and and they'll just I'll make them mad and they'll go away. But the person who's really interested will hang in there.
Yes. Yes. Yeah,
there's the curious mind, and then there's the person who really wants to learn. So if you show yourself as the person that really wants to learn, then you'd be surprised in the honor that you give other people, because they would love to share this information, especially if you're honorable. So anyway, I just want to toss that in there.
And don't forget to celebrate Native American Day this Saturday.
That's right.
Saturday.
We're gonna have to do that. Okay, well, with that, remember, everybody, be the frequency you want to receive. I love y'all. Peace, everybody.
Love you. Thank you.
Love you guys.
Cheers.